So
What did you read a meme right before you start?
no, man, I was just, last week, this is like such a so much behind the scenes TMI thing. Last week, remember we were about to start the episode. I'm like, actually, you know what? Let me run to the bathroom real quick, make sure we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that thought after we hit start. So,
Of course. Right when the countdown started, you
yeah,
said you guys struggle.
we might be a little jumpy today. So if you catch my drift.
Well, we're 30 seconds into the show, so if you got to bail and abort, I think this is probably the time. You tell me.
Maybe we do this. Maybe I make a run for it. You do an all-star recap thoughts. I'll be back in 2 minutes, and we just see how it goes.
Oh my God! You really want to time yourself for 2 minutes like that?
I think I got it. I think I got it. 2 minutes.
Okay, all right.
2 minutes. I think I got
2 minutes. I'll hold it down. So there's see the stream. It'll be me in the empty chair. I could go ISO for 2 minutes a little bit. I know we always joke about hating going ISO on this podcast because I do. I think solo episodes are the worst, right? Like you can't. I don't want to say sounding board, but like you need somebody to feed back against. I want somebody to push back on my opinions a little bit. I don't want to just sit here and agree with everything I have to say. But yeah, so we're going to start things up here in warm-up jumpers with the All-Star break. We talked a little bit about it last week in terms of the preview, but it officially is over with in Indy. A whole just to kind of recap some of the events that happened. Your dunk contest winner back-to-back is Mac McClung. We got to talk about that for a little bit. I'm for sure going to wait till Justin gets back. The 3-point shootout, Dame Lillard won. So that was cool for him as well, going back-to-back. You had the 3-point shootout between Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. I think that was extremely successful. And that's something I'll talk about in a sec. And then, of course, you had the game itself, East versus West, well over 200 points. Let's say defense was optional, to say the least. And I guess that's part of the problem with this All-Star game and what a lot of people are talking about is how do you make this competitive? How do you make this, really worth it? Because it's kind of got to a point where the game is last priority here and where it is such a we had the one possession that really stood out, and I'm not even mad at them for this, especially because I thought their bromance was kind of funny all weekend with Jokic and Luka. But you had a possession where they literally are basically playing hot potato up and down the court, and it's just, again, it's at this point, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, I can go watch guys dunk in an open gym whenever I want. Like, at that point, just hold a practice or something. Like, if we're just going to have them, do whatever. Luka pulled up from like 3/4 court at one point, but it's just blatantly obvious that no one cares. And look, it is an exhibition game. I'm not expecting these guys to be going, game 7 of the finals intensity here. These are multi-million-dollar athletes who are vital to their team. You don't want to blow your ACL out in a meaningless game. Like, I think that there are a lot of players who would advocate for that. And I think we see that in all-star games across the board. Like, I don't think this is unique to an NBA problem necessarily. The NFL is the biggest league in America, and the Pro Bowl has been an absolute joke for the most part. And there they kind of have leaned into more of the skills competitions. The game itself is a flag football game now, so there's a little bit less intensity there. And I think maybe that's what the NBA needs to lean into. Maybe they need to just go more hyper-focused on the skills contest, because to me, that's been the best part of the weekend. And we'll talk about the dunk contest because we have a lot to talk about in terms of it just being poor there. As I welcome my co-host back to the pod. That was actually really quick. Those 2 minutes. It was good.
Yeah,
listen. But it's basically, so what I've been talking about is, the game itself, and this is something that I think is true in other sports as well, is that I don't really know how you make the game competitive. The only thing I could think of is what they had a few years ago, and that was the Elam ending. And the Elam ending, where you have a set score and guys trying, I think you can at least get them to care for 4, 5, 6 minutes maybe. You're not going to get them to go hard for 4 quarters. And I think it's even more telling that they sent Larry Bird, Dr. J, Andre Iguodala back into the locker rooms to try to fire these guys up. Like, and it just still doesn't matter. Like, it's hard for these guys to go out, especially when I think a lot of them view it like work too.
Well, yeah, and to me, at least at the beginning of the game, it really felt like he was on fire, so I don't want to take away from it, but it really felt like they were trying to make Hallie the MVP right off the rip just for it being in Indiana. Like he again, credit to him, he was making the shots. It was great. But at the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, they're just feeding the ball to Hallie and it's gonna be they're just trying to make it be his MVP and here we go. Obviously that changed, but I'm telling you, man, the only way you do it is you put something at stake and you do like the NHL does in a way where it's a few different teams in the span of one game and it's like an elimination round robin kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
go 3-on-3.
yeah,
Like, do something like that. Have the mini teams. I kind of agree with that. Shake it up. And
problem
maybe you'll get a little more pride competition there.
I think it'd be fun, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like if you do, I don't know what the stakes would have to be, but like to me, a 3-on-3 competition where there's 6 teams and they play to 21 and it's twos and ones or whatever. Um, that's kind of fun. That's intriguing, and you let the fans pick the 3 that have to play together or something, which I think would be hilarious because the internet would put like some guys that don't like each other together, which would be fun though.
There's the sake for new captains too. I mean, the reality is we
Yeah,
know it's going to be LeBron and it's been Giannis or KD so far. But have 3 or 4 of those squads. Have it be those 3, and then
it
have
would
it
be
be
cool.
Team Jokic, Team Luca, Team, you know, go with a young guy, Team Anthony Edwards, like whatever works either way, and you could shake that up every year potentially. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really know what you do to make the game. I mean, unless you make it like punitive in nature and say, hey, we're gonna fine the hell out of you. But like, is that the route the NBA is gonna go? Like, we're gonna fine guys for all-star games? I don't think you put something meaningful on it. Like, I know the
No,
MLB a few years ago had it where the all-star game was for home field in the World Series. Like,
see, I
that's
like
a
that.
hella big
I
stake.
like
But
that.
I'm
I
like,
like that.
am I really want my home court based on an
Oh yeah.
exhibition game?
Mm-hmm. Come
If
out
it's
and
not in my
play.
control,
Come out and play. Come out and play.
if I won 70 games in a season, I'm not losing my home
That's
court
fair.
because, like, Dame decided to go nuclear in an all-star game.
Yeah. Well, Dame did. Dame had himself a good weekend.
He did. I mean, winning the three-point contest back-to-back was dope. I mean, that to me is the three-point shootout is the marquee skills contest event more than the dunk contest, just because of the prolific guys that
What
we have
if
now.
what if the All-Star Weekend thing is an all-encompassing 3-on-3? So it's a game, it's a three-point contest. You find a way to make the dunk contest work. I don't know. And then it's more like the skills competition stuff, but it's 3-on-3. So Dame has a team of 3 and they all compete in every single one and it's elimination. And at the end, the team that has won the most of those things wins it all. Now, obviously, you have to find a way that you don't go into the last event somebody clearly already the winner, because then that takes a lot out of it. But I don't know. Maybe that would be fun too, and it would change up the way that players approach picking people. If they know they need to win a dunk contest, and they know they need to win a 3-point contest, and they're a big man, like maybe that changes some things.
Yeah, I think the only issue there that I see is if where, you have guys that participate in one contest, but then just like aren't all stars or aren't in
Yeah,
certain other things.
yeah, yeah,
But at the same, I mean, either way, like I think there's a lot of flexibility, which is kind of what you're talking about with these contests, and maybe that's what they need to lean into more of. Like, to me, the highlight was the Steph Curry Sabrina shootout.
yeah.
Like, that was electric. And that to
Yeah.
me, I go, hey, give me a 2-on-2 next year with, give me the Splash Brothers versus Sabrina and insert ex
I
WNBA
don't even
sniper here. Like,
I don't even say that. Give me Dame and Curry against Sabrina and was it Clark
oh,
who's
Caitlin
coming?
Clark.
Yeah, dude, give me those two. I don't
Yeah.
want to take away from anybody that's not in the WNBA now. She's just making a lot of headlines and is obviously going to be in the WNBA. So like give me those two versus the other two and make it a shootout. Like let's go. That'd be fun. That's fun to
It
me.
would
Like
be. And with shooting,
it goes back to me. I think of, and this might be a bad comparison, but I think of the NFL I don't remember what they called it, like the quarterback skills competition or something like that
Yeah,
back
it's
in
like
the
the
day.
combine, more or less. It's not
Yes.
the combine, obviously, but it's
No,
more or less that.
but literally get all the quarterbacks together and see who can throw the ball the furthest. Like, can you get it the whole football field? And then on top of that, now you got technology. Get drones out there with targets. How far away can that target be? And you just nail it, pinpoint accuracy. And I know the whole point, at least in that scenario and a lot of the all-star things, is if you go out there and you look like an idiot, then you kind of, you put yourself in a situation. But it's like, I want to see things that are almost unbelievable that are happening. That's what I want to see. I want to see someone make 39 threes in a row. I want to see, again, the dunk contest is that outliner because those are amazing. It's just we've seen that you can only do it so many ways. So I don't know how you change that one, but
No, I mean the dunk contest, it's funny because like we did preview that a little bit and we have the same dunk contest qualms. And I mean, shout out to Mac again. Mac had a great
sure,
performance. I think these last 2 years, like I mean, last year especially, he was absolutely phenomenal. But as a whole, like he's really showed out, and I'm cool with him winning the contest twice.
sure.
Like I think this is not a slight at all to Mac. Jaylen Brown, man, I was spent a whole podcast talking about how excited I was to have some star power, and then you go out and you dunk over Kai Cenat sitting in a chair, and I just feel so let down. Like I feel like Tyra Banks on America's Next Top Model, being like, "We believed in you, we had star power back," and then you went out and you did that. Like, come on, Jaylen.
It felt like it. You know what that felt like? That feels like, and I know a lot of businesses do this, so maybe you as you're listening business does this. A bunch of old people got in a room and said, "What's something that'll get the people going?" And they said, "Well, there's this, streamer that does that a lot of people know, and
The kids love Kai. There's no doubt about
right,
that.
so let's put him out there and have someone dunk over him." He didn't even do the dunk right.
Shannon Sharp said that Kai Cenat sitting down is 1-5, and that's just the most ridiculous
He,
comment I've heard.
but
And I
have
was
you,
dying, man.
but have you
I was
seen?
dying.
Have you seen him next to like he
Yeah,
is
he's a small
not
dude.
yeah, he is not a tall person. Like that is no slight at him, but he is not a tall person. So, dude, yeah, man. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even think about putting on the dunk contest. It didn't cross my mind. I put on the 3-point contest. I put on the Steph Sabrina stuff. I had the All-Star game on for the first quarter and went, wow, they're trying to make Hallie the MVP and nobody else cares. I'm going to turn this off.
And for what it's worth, I completely get like that's kind of being good teammates if you're Hallie's Eastern Conference
Oh,
comrades
yeah.
and you're at your own home arena, you're showing out. I can respect that, trying to win on your home floor. So in a way, I'm not even upset with them feeding them. But yeah, I mean, like the game is just it's the least important thing of All-Star weekend to me at this point. Like I said, it all just I need to see them
A-
lean into the skills contest and the dunk contest. It just kind of it is what it is. Like, I think the judges, I'll say this. If Jaylen won that dunk contest, I was never watching a dunk contest again. Like it would have straight up been robbery at that point. Cause I don't even think he should have been in the second round. Like you probably could have put the Toppin brother there instead. Um, that was disappointing. And for what it's worth, he says he'll do it again. So that's good. Maybe.
I don't know.
But
Yeah.
I appreciate the star power being there. And so I'm not going to knock him for that. Like I am on that point. I like that an active all-star, a guy who's one of the best players on arguably the best team in the league right now, showed up for this contest. But that comes down to the core reminder of, short of just hiring professional dunkers, opening it up to the G League has obviously been a super welcome expansion. Because I mean, look at Mac. Like
Sure. Yeah.
Mac McClung doesn't even get in the last 2 years without that. But it just kind of is the sad reality of the dunk contest at this point. It's like for every once in a blue moon, you're going to get a classic. You're going to get Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine, and it's just going to
Sure.
be, bombs away going for dunks of the century. But then you're probably going to get 3 or 4 years of just where it's not that good. But I
And
just Jaylen Brown, when people like I said, Mac jumped over Shaq last year. Like I've seen people jump over Taco Fall recently. Come on, we're jumping over Kai Cenat. Like, come on.
yeah, do we know how actually tall he is?
He's got to be
5'3",
5 foot, right?
5'3".
Wow,
Wait,
5'3"
hold
is
on.
more than I expected, honestly.
He often jokes about and exaggerates his height, giving answers anywhere from 5'3" to 6'3". Most conclude that he's approximately 5'6". Like,
I
that's
5'6" is that, but like he feels shorter than 5'6". I'm not gonna lie. Like I have two of my good friends are 5'6", and they don't feel
no, but
that short.
and you look at him standing next to like celebrities and stuff, and like I think he did. Who was it? Nicki Minaj came into his stream
Yeah,
recently,
yep.
and it was like she looked a lot taller than him. So, and again, I know camera angles change things, but still, man, it's like dang, not great, not great.
Yeah, not great. And I mean, sadly, that's probably the best depiction of All-Star Weekend at this point. Like I said, I feel like a
Well,
broken record. Lean into the skills, man. Give me more
and
like Steph Sabrina type showdowns. Like try to do the things you did during the COVID breaks almost. Like play
yeah,
horse. Do
yeah,
I don't know. Get drones involved, like you said. Do something different and
and
make it like let these guys show their skills out. Have Wemby try to block shots from insanely different angles. Who knows,
well,
man?
and to that, you talk about how the game is like the least exciting thing, and the whole weekend leads to the game. So it's like if we're leading to something nobody cares about, what are we doing here? So yeah, I agree. I think you gotta experiment. I say get newer technology involved. I don't know, get self-driving cars out there for some reason. I don't know, figure it out, make it happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Cousart.
As my inspo bot generates, here we go. You don't stop controlling because you become fat. You become fat because you stop controlling.
Yo, what's up with your inspo? We might got to retire your inspo bot, bro. We might got to throw it
Oh
out.
my
I don't know if
god,
we got to go
dude.
back to the player tweets or like what it may be, but like inspo bot's just like on 20 right now.
Dude, some of I don't think we found one. I don't think we found one good one. Try to be perceived as a dog promoter? What does that even mean?
Nah, man. And like if I'm gonna give you I don't know if I feel like I'm just gonna give you random off the wall tweets, like I can just find ones anyway that are funny and will like make us laugh and not just be like ridiculous.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. I was like, there's no way this inspirational route can't be bad. And dang.
It's inspo bots washed. There's no way around it.
Dude.
I think that's really the best you can say at this point. We are hopefully not washed though. And speaking of not being washed, how about this? We are in the month. And hang on, we got a little bit though, because coming up in a few weeks, and I probably should have told this to you off the mic. I think you know this anyway, but coming up in a few weeks, we got to celebrate because this is the 10-year anniversary of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast.
Decade.
Maybe we'll find some clips from our first episode, and you can just really laugh at how silly the production and take. Well, no, let me rephrase that. Production's always been good. The takes, maybe not so much. The chemistry, definitely not as much early on as you figure each other out. But
Yeah. There was a point where we sang Journey.
was it? No, it was Afternoon
No,
Delight.
it was Afternoon Delight. You're right. Yeah,
well,
and
that was all. Tim had such a fascination with doing that. He was
why
really
why
just
did he
like,
want to do it?
I have no idea. Like I still
Okay.
and like I love Anchorman, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Like not don't really. That was just stuck in his head, and that's one of those where you're like,
Okay.
all right, like whatever, why not?
I remember
Anyway.
I put like auto tune on our voices and everything,
That's
man.
hilarious. We hit it with the T-Pain. That's awesome. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Player FM, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
And we're on YouTube. You can find us there. Just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. A wild video series events in this episode. So you're more than welcome to subscribe and watch the video version there.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
So a little bit of coaching news, two to be specific. Let's start with the most recent one, since I feel like there's less juice to squeeze there. Steve Kerr, Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors have agreed to a 2-year, $35 million contract extension that came out last night as of recording this podcast. Kerr's deal now makes him the highest paid coach in the NBA in terms of annual average. which is now for him at 17.5 million. The I guess most notable thing of this deal is that Kerr's contract now lines up with Steph Curry's deal. Steph has 2 years, 115.3 million remaining this after this season. So leads me to believe that the Warriors think there might be an end closer than maybe some would want there to be.
Yeah, I think like you said, the fact that the contract lines up with Curry is, I think, the big takeaway here. And I mean, I'm sure for Steve Kerr with having 4 championships recently, there is something to be said too about being in that like record high coaching.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure when you see some people get in the bag recently and you say, hey, I need to be up there too, given my history here. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, listen,
I should say, by the way, there is a little asterisk to that highest paid coach thing. Pop makes more than Kerr on annual basis, but he's also the president of the Spurs, so it kind of took him out of that
and those are the 2
qualification.
guys you would kind of expect to be up there at this
Who
point,
would
right?
who do you think is number 3?
Who do I think is number 3 or who should be number 3?
I am almost positive I know who number 3 is based off this article I've got up, so I'm gonna assume this one's 3.
And there's 2 people that come to mind because one of them just got a contract and one is good and one is not so good. The good one
Okay.
is actually Mike Malone.
Okay.
I know Mike got a contract like semi recently. Monty Williams is making a ton of money in Detroit right now.
Yeah.
A ton of money, and doing maybe the worst coaching job I have seen in the recent era. I mean, it is just astounding how bad Detroit's rotations are and
If
how much I'd
you
argue that he's stunting their development actively at this point.
Okay. I'm gonna try to bait you into complimenting someone I don't think you wanna compliment.
Oh, no, it's Doc, isn't it?
Would Doc do a better job?
Than Monty?
Sure.
Yeah, actually, yes. I can't believe I'm saying that, but no, 100% that Monty's rotate like Doc would be weird on Detroit because Doc doesn't like playing young players, and so at that point, I'd
He
be
wouldn't
worried
have the option.
ton of minutes to Bogdanovich and Alec Burks, but then the Pistons traded them to the Knicks, so they kind of right. You don't really have an option here now. Monty is just like he had 11 players play in the first 15 minutes. Like, what on earth are you doing with these rotations? And Detroit, since the 30-game losing streak or whatever it was, I don't think they hit 30, but
No,
the
it was
record
28 or
like
whatever it was. Yep.
they've climbed up. They're up to 8 wins. Like they're only one behind the Wizards at this point, who are, by the way, 0-10 in their last 10. So like it's not the total
But
great card. But Monty, this team has good players who I actively think are all being held back by Monty Williams. Like it's not rare, like it's pretty rare where I say that about a coach on a team. Like
Mhm.
and Monty seems like a nice guy for all said and worth. He should never be head coaching an NBA team ever again after this. Like it is horrendous.
It's not great, and you compare them to teams that were kinda on a similar rebuild. I always really kinda had them and the Magic in the same timeline a little bit, and look where the Magic are compared. I mean
Yeah, I mean, they both had number 1 picks. Like the Magic look like, I mean, and now with the Sixers slipping, and again, that's something
yeah.
we'll talk about a little bit here as we get into second half things to look at. But back to coaching though, keeping it with Steve Kerr and the Warriors, it's
Well,
probably comes at a
but
good time too because they're clicking. They're 8-2 in their last 10, like
Mhm.
back over 500 again. They're still in the 10 seed in the West. But when you look at how, and I guess the Lakers, for what it's worth, also 7-3 in their last 10, but they're 3 behind Phoenix, 3 behind the Kings. They're creeping on the Mavericks. Like, don't let the Warriors get going.
Well, and that again, we'll look forward to talking about second half things, but that's kind of one of mine is can the guarantee the star teams that we know so well that are trying to I guess be repeat offenders here, can they get it going? But again, we'll talk about that later. By the way, the third, at least on this list for highest paid coach in annual average, Eric Spoelstra. He's got that
Oh,
eight
yeah,
year, 15 mil per year deal that
that's
came
right. And
through.
he just got that this season. Super deserved, obviously. Like,
Which
Spo
which
is arguably the best coach in the league.
which by the way, depending on how you feel about it, they waited till his his divorce was finalized to give him
Yep.
the whole thing. Playing chess over here. So
Yeah, listen, real company man right there. But first, Steve Kerr, though, I think the one quote, and shout out to Golden State of mine for pulling the quote, is that Steph Curry's also openly said that he doesn't want to play for anyone other than Steve Kerr. That feels like everything. Like the only way he wasn't really going to be coaching this team is if he just decided to retire. Like that is the thing with, with him with Popovich.
Oh,
Now, granted, Popovich got
I took that
Wemby, so I
differently.
think that extended his run a
Well,
lot longer. Steve Kerr gets another generational prospect. Maybe that does with him,
well,
but
see.
I do think Steve Kerr probably is done coaching here. Like when they start to fully
Oh,
embrace a rebuild, I do think he probably
no.
hangs it up and facilitates the transition. Like I don't think it's going to be abrupt, and I don't think he's going to look to go anywhere else. Like I just think you are going to hit that point where Steve Kerr just wants to retire.
My prediction, and if we were one more year down the line, at least on this contract that he just signed, and the Bucks were floundering like this, dude, I'd be like, this offseason, Kerr's going to the Bucks. He's gonna be their coach. Curry's gonna follow him. They're gonna freaking win another ring, and everyone will cap it off and be happy.
So all that is great, but I think all you need to do is change one thing there and say, why would you not just try to get Giannis to Golden State
Well,
to
they already
fit there?
tried. They
They
were
love playing
already
with each
trying
other.
to. They were already trying to get LeBron this year.
Steph and Steve Kerr aren't going to Milwaukee. And I don't think Giannis is leaving Milwaukee for what it's worth. But if this season goes south, I
Mm,
think the whispers start to get louder again,
I
even
mean,
with
at
the
what
extension.
I was gonna say, at what point is the season south? Because
No, it's not south until they bomb out in the playoffs.
okay,
Like look, the Bucks could have a horrendous end of the regular season, but if you do well in the playoffs, and for them, if they're in the conference finals, I don't consider it bombing out. I
okay,
know they're title or bust, especially once they go and get Dame Lillard, but like the reality is I think Boston's better.
hmm
And again, we'll talk
I
second
mean,
half in a little bit.
Boston's leading the league by like 5 games right now.
Yeah. But before we get to Boston, we do want to mention Brooklyn firing Jacque Vaughn, who is in the first year, and Kevin Ollie is going to take over, by the way, in the interim for Brooklyn. I do want to mention that, but Jacque Vaughn had just got the extension last year, a multi-year extension after what they did in Brooklyn and kind of the way they held on, post KD trades, post Kyrie trades with all the Ben Simmons uncertainty. Like that was kind of one of the notches in their cap is that they were able to avoid the play-in spite of all that. You talk about Mikal Bridges breaking out and leading the way last year, but then you go into this season, Brooklyn is 21-34 right now. They're 3 games out of the play-in, and they're just like they don't seem to have a direction. And I guess that's kind of the point. But does that mean Jacque Vaughn should have lost his job? Like I don't
Well,
know.
so take it as what it is, but we would be remiss to bring up or not bring up the report that some of the players, I know Bridges was named in at least one of the tweets that I think Shams put out, that they were very vocal behind the scenes about his offensive scheme because it was built around Ben Simmons, which is wild that would still be the case. Like we didn't even know if he was going to play. Like, is his back good? We don't know. Um, but yeah, and I think he's played 11, 12 games this season. Ben Simmons has. So if that's the case, then there is a little bit of like, what are we doing here? And so I get it from that point, but also what were the expectations that weren't being met for this team that you have right now, at least from a front office standpoint? Maybe you say the key words like intensity and drive and motivation, and it's like, cool, those are the key words that you bring up when you fire a coach, but like, what does that actually mean? Are we just saying that to say that? Like, where can we kind of try to start reading between the lines here and see what happened? I think if you want to take it for what it is, the Shams tweet saying that the offense was built around Ben Simmons, well, then we do have a problem.
Yeah, and I can see that being frustrating, but I think that's also the box you've been pigeonholed into a
Sure,
little
yeah,
bit. If you're trying to make this thing work with the amount of
but
money.
you have a guy in Bridges who is a great player. you have Cam Thomas, who kind of showcased a few times last year that there might be worth looking into. I don't know. Maybe you start focusing on that a little bit more.
No, I don't fully disagree. And I mean, that's what, again, got them into the playoffs last
Right,
year.
right.
It does seem like, I hate using it, but it's the vibe check with the team. It has felt like it's off a little bit.
Yeah,
They got crushed by Boston, which I'm sure did. I mean, I feel like that's what kind of maybe triggered the move. I mean, they lost by 50 points. But
not great.
again, it also does just kind of go back to where it's like,
What are you doing?
what did you expect? Like,
Right.
what is the roster here right now? Like, I know you're happy with McHale, and they're so happy with McHale that they made him untouchable, even for apparently reports of upwards of 4 and 5 first round picks. But I
Wild.
mean, this is after they fired Steve Nash, obviously the year before. So they really got to get this one right. And I mean, they're going to give Kevin Ollie, by all means, a long-term look here. Kevin Ollie has never coached NBA, but he did win an NCAA title with UConn a few years ago, and he played in the league for a while. So, like, I'm not even opposed. Definitely for the rest of the season, like, give him the audition at this point. Going into the offseason, see who's available.
Ale.
Oh my God. But no, I do wonder. Yeah, you really got to get this next hire right. And I think more importantly, you got to figure out a direction. And maybe that starts to look at Sean Marks a little bit. Like, Sean Marks has been the GM of this team for a long time. And I credit him. I think for the most part, he's done a really good job. But I do think at some point here, you got to start selling us on what you're building long term. Because right now, I'm not really seeing it.
No, it doesn't. Like the dynamic of the players on the team kind of confused me a little bit. And, it's like, are we developing? Are we trying to make a playoff push? Like, I don't know. I feel like we're in that no man's land with them right now, which is
Yeah.
not a great spot to be in the NBA, especially when, just a season and a half ago, you had two of the biggest stars in the NBA on the team.
Yeah. I mean, he legit, like, they've lost 23 of their last 31.
It's bad.
It's just going the wrong direction. I think that's probably what spurred the change here
Some
now.
kind of
But
spark. I get it. I mean, I get it. It's just I don't know if maybe
coaching ain't it. That's just
right.
the point, I guess, is where I'm at. It's like, sure, okay, if you want to make a coaching change, that's fine. I don't think it's the wrong decision necessarily, but I'm not
Right.
expecting it to just fix
Well,
everything magically.
right. And I don't it players like Cam Thomas saying they thought it was a joke by the internet about the firing kind of tells you a little bit about that too. Like even they were kind of surprised.
Yeah, like I don't think people dislike Jacque Vaughn, put it that way. Like I don't think there was a personality clash or anything. I just think there may have been some frustrations with the offense. But regardless, the greater point, you got to nail this next hire. Like you
Yeah.
really got to start to kind of figure things out here a little bit. That's as we transition into the second half of the season now officially. I mean, really post All-Star break, we're a little past second half. I mean, it's an 82 game season. Most
Mm-hmm.
teams have about 56 games played at this point. But so we're getting ready for this final playoff push. This is really when I think you start to see the intensity ramp up. Maybe we've already seen, some of that. A few games last night get a little chippy. You got the Warriors, Hornets
Jimmy
getting chippy. You got the Pelicans and the Heat getting chippy here a little bit. So
by the way, spurred by Kevin Love. That like whole kind of thing. I was surprised by that. I was like, okay, Kevin Love.
no, listen, it's getting ready to lock in. I mean, listen, you're
Mhm.
Miami. You're a little bit, 7-3 in their last 10. They're the sleeping giant right now. I am going to start
They
in
do
the
it every
East.
year. They
Yeah, I
do
mean,
it
they do it
every
every
year.
year. And I mean, I guess my thing to watch in terms of seeding in the East, playoff wise right now, you've got Boston 1, Cleveland 2, Milwaukee 3, Knicks 4, Sixers, Pacers, Heat, Magic, Bulls, Hawks are the 10 play-in teams or playoff teams / play-in teams in order.
Mhm.
The Sixers just post Embiid, huge win over Cleveland last night. They needed that desperately. But just the reality is like they're playing like a 29 win pace without Embiid right now. And so that has created a lot of, for the younger squads, for Indy and Orlando, who are kind of those like borderline threshold teams, I think that creates a lot of opportunity for you. I mean, Indy
They
right now
smell
is a half
blood.
game up, but like you can avoid that play-in spot, which would be, I mean, I think they already are objectively no matter what, but those could be massive successes for both of those squads if they're able to avoid the play-in game. Again, you do have Miami right there as well, and I think Miami is the sleeping giant that we're all kind of willing to wake up here a little bit, or we're watching for them to wake up. But I mean, it's pretty wide open, like even all the way up to 2 with Cleveland. I know Cleveland's been playing a lot better recently, but they're not, it's different. The separation between 2 and 6 right now and 7 in the playing spot is only about 5.5 games. So it's not like that's some margin that you can't make up. Boston, I think, and maybe that is the story of the East, is where it's like Boston is chilling right now in the number 1 slot. And I don't want to just say they're going to run away from it, because I think the West is really, really good this year, the top of the West. But are we not giving Boston enough credit for being a juggernaut maybe here a little bit? And it's just their depth. Like, they just have, like, with Porzingis and Holiday, they just have so many ways to beat you now.
Yeah. Well, and they but it still feels like they're being slept on in a way. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like Boston of teams past have been really talked about. Like, for example, in the month of February, right? Golden State Warriors are 9-2. I know we still got like a week left. Golden State Warriors are 9-2. Lakers are 7-2. Pelicans are 7-2. Dallas are 7-1. Like, all those, OKC 6-2. Like, all those teams we talk about, like, man, they're winning, they're this and that. Boston 7-1 in that time frame too. Like, they're winning, and people are just like accustomed to that winning, so like they just kind of gloss over it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I think maybe the uncertainty is because they've been so close and haven't got over the
Sure,
hump yet. I mean,
sure.
especially I think last year, like when they lost the finals of the Warriors, like there was a little bit, but again, that's just, it is what it is. I don't feel like you're disappointed about that, but like that should be a notch in their cap more than a hit against it. I think last year, given what happened with Miami, I think there's a lot of people, because they feel like
Sure.
Miami control that series, and it's like,
Yeah.
hey, if you're Boston, like it's got to happen here at some point.
Yeah.
I say all that to say, I still think this Boston team is even better. It's like they have everybody they had from last year. Only again, now you have Porzingis and Holiday in the mix. Like it's just a deeper roster. They have more ways to beat you than they did in the past. Like Porzingis has been so efficient in the post this year. I don't know, and just because they haven't won before, I think maybe it's that we're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I think this Celtics team, more than others, is better than other versions.
My other team that is on my list in the East of like what happens in the second half is another team that I think is really slept on. And that's the Cavs. Like, you look at pre-All-Star record in the NBA, all NBA. Boston's obviously number 1, Timberwolves number 2, OKC number 3. Then it's the Cavs. Like, they're tied record-wise with the Denver Nuggets and the Clippers, who you hear about so much more.
Yeah.
Now, I know I think the Cavs started really slow at the beginning of the season. So I get kind of like a quick maybe potential write-off, but dude, I think it was a website called Analyst Stats put out that their best lineups for plus minus don't include Garland or even Mobley. So like there's a lot of like weirdness around the team as a whole. I think it was I think they were saying Jared Allen, Max Strus, um, and then someone else, those 3 as like a 3-man lineup, they're like a plus 25.3 net rating in like 236 minutes together. Like, it's like a weird combo lineup that just kind of works. And it's like, look, don't ask questions. If it works, it works. I think Donovan Mitchell was on that list too. But yeah, like are they legit? Is because even the Knicks, right? Even the Knicks, who were kind of comparable to the Cavs last year. I feel like we've talked about the Knicks a lot more this year, obviously because of being involved in some decent trades. But I feel like we've talked about the Knicks a lot more than we talked about the Cavs. The Cavs, record-wise, at least pre-All-Star, they were number 4. The Knicks were tied for 8th with teams like the Suns, Pelicans, and Dallas Mavericks, which again is kind of also a feat for the Knicks, like being record-wise tied with the Suns going into the All-Star break. I think from a Knicks standpoint, you call that a win. I think Pelicans call that a win too, actually.
All right, so unpacking a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I think the Cavs' weirdness with the lineups And maybe that is a little credit to them having to adjust when they lost
Yeah.
Garland and Mobley at the same time. Like, they
Yeah.
just went for a good stretch without playing
Yeah.
with them. And the fact that they kept it afloat, and now that you get those guys back, like, maybe again, that's kind of a lose the battle to
Depth.
win the war
But
necessarily.
now your depth works, right?
Right. Now, I don't want to be the wet blanket here, but I'm going to be the wet
Uh,
blanket a little bit. I think the reason people aren't talking about them as much is they are a prove it team in the playoffs, because I think they got punched in the face by the Knicks in the playoffs last
mhm.
year. Like, I remember, like, I was bullish on Cleveland last year
Yeah.
when they got Donovan Mitchell. Like, I was saying all the things you were. I was ready for them to take the leap, because the year before they brought in Mitchell, I really liked what they did too. Like, that was kind of the start of what they've been building here. And you hope they learn from last year, because I thought them and the Knicks were really evenly matched last year. And then the Knicks just, like, they punked them, man. Like, they just totally dominated that series. And so you got to see what Cleveland's learned from that. Like, I do want to see them come back playoff time. And if they are, look, the East is wide open after Boston, I think. Like, they
Mhm.
truly, if they play to their potential, there's a reason they're the 2 seed right now. Like, they absolutely are as good as the Sixers, as good as the Heat, as good as the Bucks, as good as the Knicks. You just got to see them put it together when it matters.
If everybody in the East plays to their potential, do you think the Cavs are top 3? I would
I
imagine.
don't. I
Okay.
think if the Sixers are healthy, they're top 3. I think
With Embiid,
Miami's
right?
still with Embiid. I'm
Yeah,
assuming they
yeah,
have
yeah,
Embiid.
yeah.
If they don't have Embiid, they're definitely not top 3.
Yeah, that, and that's what I meant. Like, players now, like, injuries included, everybody plays to their potential. It's probably Boston, again, playing to their potential, Milwaukee Bucks, and then Cavs?
I don't even know that I have Milwaukee at 2.
Okay.
Like, I don't. I don't. The Knicks are really deep, man. I don't know. Like, I like the top of Milwaukee better, and I maybe like the top of Cleveland a little better. But, like, when you look at, I mean, I don't know, the Knicks' best 9, I would argue, can go
Mhm.
up against them. And they have playoff questions too, with largely with
Sure.
Randall. I mean,
Yeah.
not as much with Brunson and the rest of the guy, but with Randall for sure. Like, that's a massive question for me as well come playoff time. But I don't know. For me right now, again, Embiid health matters, but I think it's probably like Celtics, Heat, and Sixers are my top 3.
Okay.
Maybe I'm hating on the Bucks a little too much.
Yeah.
Fine, put the Bucks in there instead of my Sixers bias. The Knicks are right there too. Like, I don't know. I struggle to put Cleveland top 3. I feel like I have more faith in the other 2 teams, but that doesn't mean Cleveland can't beat them, I guess is my point. Like, I don't think Cleveland is in some radically different tier. It's not like the rest of the East where with Indy and Orlando, they're good stories, but I struggle to pick them winning a first round playoff series. And the Bulls and the Hawks, assuming they get out of the play in, same deal. Like, I don't even think they're in the same ball game right now.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and maybe that's a little, again, too much bias to last season. That's just kind of where I'm at with them right now.
Yeah.
Out in the West, Minnesota 1, OKC 2, Clippers 3, Denver 4. Pels 5, Mavs 6, Kings 7, Suns, Lakers, Warriors round out the play-in.
And I don't think we say it enough. I know I had the Timberwolves as my ball-in for, like, 3 weeks in a
Right.
row. But, dude, between the Timberwolves, OKC, and I'll even throw the Pelicans in there, who are just having such a better season than maybe I thought they would. OKC has exceeded all kinds of expectation, and Minnesota Timberwolves, it's finally, like, clicking. Like, we thought they could do it, we just never thought the personnel would make it happen, and now it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the fun of seeing the young guys, right? Kind of
Yeah,
take this leap here a little bit with Minnesota, with OKC. With OKC, the question for everybody is just going to be, is it sustainable? Like,
yeah.
you want to see these young guys play, and going out and getting a Gordon Hayward, I think will kind of give them a little bit of help on that front as well. But um, I mean, they just keep checking boxes. Like, we keep saying we're waiting for, like, the window. I'm trying to think of it. We're waiting for what's the phrase? Like, the floor to fall out.
Mhm.
Is what I'm trying to say. But it hasn't been happening. The one team that I'm surprised you haven't mentioned as much is the Clippers, man. The Clippers are
I know.
really, and again, it's about health
But
with
we're
them. It always comes
yeah.
down to health, but I think the Clippers are playing as good as anybody in the NBA right now. Like, if they're healthy, I could see them winning the West. And I feel a little more confident about that than I do with Minnesota, with OKC, as well as they're playing. The only team I probably would say I don't feel that better is Denver. Like Denver is still Denver. I'm giving Jokic the benefit of the doubt as well in the playoffs every single time,
well,
regardless of what they're doing in the regular season.
And I will say, in terms of when we were just kind of running down the list names, I went with Timberwolves, Thunder, and Pelicans because those guys are, well, and maybe not Timberwolves, but those guys are kind of the newcomers to being towards the top end of the Western Conference. Like that, those are the new team names that we haven't seen in years past. Like we're used to Suns, Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets are usually there, and then it's like after that, it's like I guess the Kings have kind of Mavericks maybe, but the Kings have also kind of been hanging around. And I would say like, what is the Kings this year? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I saw the meme for the Kings on one of the NBA pages where it's the person looking out the bus window and it's really dark and stormy, and the person looking out the bus window and it's sunshine and rainbows, and obviously, and it's funny because it's the Kings last season versus the Kings this season because they more or less have the same record, but the feeling from Kings fans on this season is so different, and part of that is the curse of expectations, right? Once you get good, you start to, you expect to be back. I think the Kings are having a good season. Like they're a game away from being up all the way up at 5. Like I don't think they're going to catch the top 4, which makes it a little tough. Like you want to avoid the play-in scenario, not get a Phoenix, not get potential Warriors or Lakers,
dude,
and even play with your food there at all.
If the play-in scenario is like Suns, Lakers, Warriors, I don't like any team that would potentially have to play against that.
I still just trust the Kings a little more than Dallas. Dallas still feels like too much, and they're better defensively than they were last year. They're not the complete train wreck they were there, but it still just feels like too much Luka and company for me sometimes. Though I will say I really like the PJ Washington trade for them. Like that's one of those sneaky moves where I'm like, you might have got something here. And I know he's super hungry to get into the playoffs. Having been in Charlotte, he hasn't really played meaningful basketball like that so far in his career. The Pels are clicking too, like you said with Zion. They're definitely, I think, have gone under the radar here.
Oh,
100%. In terms of
I didn't realize they were 5 until like prepping for this episode. I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing really well.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that is the standings changing all the time. But I mean, you're right with Phoenix having Beal back and with them kind of with their offense expecting to take off the way it has, and the fact that they've stayed ahead of them is really a testament to them. I still like Sacramento's depth. I want to see De'Aaron Fox take over. I think Sabonis has been an absolute stud this season. I mean, he's playing kind of like a mini Jokic almost, like just in the way that he's really done a good job of facilitating and getting his teammates involved out of the post. I want to see Fox step up. I want to see Malik Monk's had an up and down season. I think that'll be key for them to get going. If Harrison Barnes, he's had when they've been elite, he's really been able to step up on the offensive end too. I think that'll be a question. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. Like I'm not worried about the Kings fading out of the playoffs. I mean, I think everybody really, that's the big difference from this year and last year. I do think the 10 are kind of set in both conferences. Like maybe in the East, the two knocking on the door are Brooklyn and Toronto, who are both 2.5 and 3.5 back of Atlanta right now. But Atlanta didn't blow it up, so you can't really see them making the move at this point.
No.
In the West, like Houston is faded. Utah's a full 4 back of Golden State and the Lakers at this point, who, like we said, are both playing better here over the last few weeks. I don't expect to see Phoenix or Sac or Dallas or New Orleans fade at all. So at that point, you are kind of locked in to the top 10 in the play-in position and the playoffs. So, I mean, yeah, really in the West, it's about the young guys and it's about the health of the Clippers for me. I think tank-wise, I mean, Memphis is just with Ja being out, we know what they're doing. Portland has had a pretty disappointing season. San Antonio, it's just watch Wemby. Wemby is taking off, bro. Like, look out. Him and LeBron last night, like, that might be one of those games we look back in hindsight where you're like, that was a special moment quietly.
Just an observation. In the top 15 players, I was looking this up as we were talking about Sacramento, so I'm kind of going to bring it back for a second. In the top 15 players in the league right now for points totals this season, in the top 15, every name is a player that ESPN is bumping, except for one, I think. You've got Dame, you've got Booker, you got Maxey, you got Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Edwards, Kevin Durant, Jokic, Steph Curry, Brunson, Luka, etc., etc. Then you got De'Aaron Fox. Like, I feel like we don't talk about De'Aaron Fox.
We don't. I mean, relative to these other and part
That's
of
what I
that too.
mean.
Yeah, and part of that is just unfortunately being the victim of playing in a conference with so many awesome guards. Like
Yeah.
when you're looking at all-star voting, for example,
Yeah.
you've got Steph who's basically locked into a spot
That's
every
it.
single
Every
time.
time. Yep.
And then when you've got somebody else like, look at Booker, for example. Like Booker's not a guy I'm taking out. Now you got Ant right there. Now you got Shy right there as well. Like, I don't know, man.
That's
That
what
does
I'm
make it a
saying.
little
Like,
tough for you to get talked about. It
and
reminds me a little bit of, and I think maybe Fox's ceiling is a little higher, but it reminds me of the way like Mike Conley used to be when he was on the Grizzlies, where it was like Mike Conley was a great point guard for years,
yeah.
but he just
Yeah.
was
Never.
never better than the top
But
guy.
even like you look at the guys below. So De'Aaron Fox is at 13. Devin Booker's right behind him for continuity's sakes. You go out of the top 15, you've got Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James, Cat, DeMar DeRozan, who I would say we're talking about a lot less just because Chicago's stuff.
Yeah.
Pascal Siakam, Joel Embiid, Kawhi, Bridges, Kuzma. Like, even those guys, I feel like we're talking about more than De'Aaron Fox, who's quietly in the top almost 10 of points totals this season, which I know you can't just go off that only, but it's like for how much we talk about the other guys, it's just surprising that he's not even really, at least I feel like, referenced.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, and
Sabonis,
part of
by
that
the
too is
way,
I think the Kings just jumping up a little bit too in recent years. Like I think it's been the national just spotlight of not talking about them.
Sabonis, by the way, leading the league in rebounds by like a good chunk, actually.
Yeah.
Just another observation. And just because it's here, Rudy Gobert has taken 2 3-point attempts this season and has not made any of them.
That's awesome. Love it. You got
There's
it.
another, let's see. Jared Allen has taken 5 and hasn't made one yet. Let's see if there's any other big men here. Drummond. No. Bam. Bam has taken 11 threes this year and made one.
Hey, listen, I just got to get one on the board. Just got to get one on the board.
I think Nick Claxton, too, has taken 4 and made one. But either way, that's just because I'm just randomly looking at totals. So sorry.
No, listen, I love when the few true, and especially because all those players are good. Like, we're not talking about them being like, these aren't just random bigs who get garbage time minutes, but there are still a couple who are 3 allergic, if you will.
All right, fine. Let's do one last. Can you guess the player game?
Okay.
Total blocks on the season. Can you guess the top 3?
Total blocks on this season?
This season. All season total blocks. The first one, the first one's obvious, yes.
Let's see, after Wemby.
The next 2, one is in the West and one is in the East.
Is Claxton on that list?
Claxton is 8 at 100 on the dot blocks.
Okay. Is Gobert on the list?
Gobert is number 6 at 113. Number 2 has 148, and number 3 has 146. So very close.
I mean, we just mentioned him. Is Jared Allen one of them?
Jared Allen is not, at least in the top 9. Chet Holmgren.
Oh, true.
Is number 2. Which, like, think about that. The top 2 guys for blocks this season are, and then Brook Lopez.
Okay, Brook's still sneaking in there. Good for man, ageless wonder, Brook Lopez, and that's crazy. I didn't think of him because he's kind of had a down year,
dude.
For his standards.
You look at the top 5 for blocks. I know it's a very niche, like specific stat, but the top 5 are Wemby, Chet, Brook Lopez, Walker Kessler, and Anthony Davis. You got 3 really young, exciting, like that's fun, man.
Walker Kessler is young too. I mean,
that's what I mean. 22. 22. He's the oldest of the 3, but it's 20, 21, and 22. So
yeah, either way, the league is in good hands right now. There's no doubt about that. You wonder who the face is going to be, but the talent is crazy. I mean, we kind of like glanced over OKC and did the whole like, well, it's just if they can keep winning talk, but like Chet is incredible, man. And like SGA is incredible. Jalen Williams is incredible. Like we could do deep dives on all these guys, but unfortunately we got to keep things moving. We are skipping who's balling, who's falling this week, just a little bit house cleaning, but we are going to get right into NBA Immaculate Grid. And just a reminder, as always, of course, you can watch the Immaculate Grids, like you can watch the full podcast on our YouTube page. Just search Drive and Dish NBA Podcast. Of course, we will have the grid as well on the audio version. But for our audio listeners, our columns this week from left to right, we've got Phoenix Suns, we've got Born Outside the U.S. 50 States in D.C., which I got to be honest, I'm really tired of doing. We're really good at it. And 20 points a game per season. From top to bottom, you got the Jazz, you got the Celtics, and you got 10,000 rebounds career. I got to be honest, Justin, I'm a little disappointed. I think we're going to smoke this just because I'm already sitting here like I feel like I've got it filled out in my head. But
can we go? I feel like people are going to put it because he's on the team right now. The Jacksonville native Grayson Allen.
Your boy Grayson Allen does work for Jazz and Suns. We definitely can go Grayson Allen.
Do we think we want to go like a lesser known player? Because like he's there now, so I feel like it's going to be a higher percentage.
It is. The other one that you and I both had talked a little bit before was Ricky Rubio works there as well.
Would Rubio? I feel like Rubio is more of a household name.
Rubio's high too, man. Like Rubio is high a lot.
Maybe Allen will be less than Rubio. I mean, you could always go Rubio Born Outside the 50 States.
You could. There's a lot for the Jazz. I mean, we could, how much time do you got?
Joe Ingles, baby, the English teacher.
No, listen, Joe Ingles, Andre Karolinko.
Yeah.
You got Mehmet Okur.
Did Ilyas? No, Hedo Turkoglu. Did he ever play for the Jazz?
I feel like
I know he was on Orlando.
But I really want to make sure that I don't have him and Okur mixed up. Okur, I know 100% did. Hedo, I think
he was definitely on the Mavs. He was definitely on Orlando. And
he was on Orlando on the good. Like he started with the Kings. He was on the Magic where he spent the majority of his career. I think he was on the Clippers for a little bit at the end. I don't feel 100% confident about the Jazz.
Okay. Well, let's go Grayson Allen just because that's a running thing for me.
Yeah, we'll kick that off. And like you said, Jacksonville native. Always, I was gonna say, Grayson may be a little more unique there than Allen.
I probably should. 6%.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, Rubio would have been way higher than that. Yeah, okay.
We will take that all. Do we think there's no way Joe Ingles was averaging 20 points per game at any point, right?
There's no plan.
I know he had 20-point games.
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to put it. He had 20-point games.
All right, Born Outside. What do we want to do? Rubio is going to be probably high.
Rubio will be high. I think Karolinko. I do Okur. I think Mehmet Okur is going to be really low.
Okay, how does he?
Okay, you are.
You
are right there. Yep.
Right here. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Yes, with 5%.
5%. Karolinko was really good there, so I figured he'd be higher.
Now, do we think Rudy Gay did 20 points per game in a season with the Jazz?
I don't think he did with the Jazz. I think he may have done 20 a game in a season, but I don't think he did with the Jazz. Who
was there beforehand who played forward for the Jazz before Gay? I feel like his last name started with an M. I want to say Moore, but that's not. I don't think that's right.
Are you talking about Paul Millsap?
No. It would have been in between.
Okay, because I don't think Millsap averaged 20 there.
No, there was a guy
averaged 20 there.
Oh, Gordon Hayward probably would work.
Hayward may have averaged 20 there. That's probably he's real because he was always like a borderline all-star there.
He has to have 20 points.
I think he cracked 22. The obvious ones are Karl Malone and John Stockton. I think Darren Williams is kind of an obvious one. Carlos Boozer, maybe, but I don't know enough to go on it. I'm fine with Gordon Hayward, though, if you want to do that.
Let's go Gordon Hayward, and then I want to try to I want to see if I can remember the other player I'm thinking of. I guess I should spell it right. W. Gordon. There we go. 5%.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, really? 5 is lower than I expected. Wow. Okay. Gordon Hayward only did it one time on the Jazz. He was real close twice. He was at 19.3 and 19.7 in 14-15 and then 15-16. 2016-2017 is the only time he's actually in his entire career averaged over 20. He averaged 21.9 that season.
I'm trying to remember
and then got hurt, obviously, in Boston the next year.
that played
kind of unfortunate
for Jazz. There's a player, I want to say his last name was Moore, but I'm gonna have to go back. I'll kind of mess with this maybe.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. For Celtics, and so we get Celtics Suns, Celtics born outside, and Celtics 20 game this season. I mean, the born outside and 20th season are both pretty easy for the Celtics for me.
Ooh, Barbosa.
Did Barbosa play for the Suns or the Celtics? I should say. I know he played for the Suns.
He did in 2013 because I played NBA 2013 and he was my guy. He was my 3-point shooter.
Listen, you got it. I will not argue with that. That was so specific that I will not argue with it.
Leandro
Barbosa was great for the Suns. Yeah, okay.
He was my guy in NBA 2K13 at Flagler College. Man, he couldn't miss a shot.
He probably on Phoenix, man.
He was outside the US too. He might have worked there actually.
Yeah, he's Brazilian, so that would have worked there as well. That definitely would have been 1% there. That's crazy. Yeah, good guess. The chalky one was Isaiah Thomas, probably. But yeah, Barbosa, really good pull there, Just. All right, born outside the U.S., 50 states and D.C. for Boston. I mean, on the team right now is Porzingis. Al Horford is also born outside the U.S., which I feel like a lot of people forget about and something that we've talked about. I mean, man, who the Celtics had? I'm trying to think of like foreign players that the Celtics have had recently. Why are there less of these than I can remember?
Born outside. Who played with like anybody in the Paul Pierce era?
That's what I'm trying to think of. Like, how am I not thinking of like? Because I'm like thinking of the 08 and the 09, like the teams that were in the finals, but they all were like Americans. Now I think about it. It was
Brandon Bass was US, right?
I think
so. He's just a random. Kendrick Perkins is US, right?
Perkins definitely US.
Drummond. I don't think was Drummond ever there.
I don't think so.
But he's US too. I'm pretty sure. What about a point guard? Did Schroeder ever end up?
Schroeder did play in Boston. Schroeder did play in Boston.
Yeah. He's my go-to, not in the US. And it works.
Schroeder's very German.
Should we go with Schroeder? I feel like that's going to be one people won't.
I don't think his tenure in Boston was kind of bad. So like, I think it's probably not a bad answer. I mean, Porzingis is going to be the one I imagine people go to right now.
2% Dennis
2%,
Schroeder.
nice.
Dude, I'm telling you, he is my go-to anytime we get born outside the US for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, my. It's not a bad one. All right, 20th season.
Has to be with the team, right?
Yeah, it does have to be with
like we couldn't go Porzingis.
Yes, it has to be with the team. So like Porzingis can't be on it. The obvious ones are Paul Pierce, Larry Bird,
Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas may not be a bad one, honestly.
Did Kemba Walker do it?
Kemba is a really good question.
That would be a wild one.
I don't.
It's gonna be close if he did.
Wow. I want to guess it. I really do. Because wow.
Should we save it for last?
Yeah, let's come back to it. But bookmark Kemba for there.
Kemba could be.
That's a good guess if he did.
Kemba could be a good one because
All right. Born outside the U.S., 50 states and D.C. with 10,000 rebounds. Olajuwon is for sure. Tim Duncan is for sure.
Boris Diaw?
I don't think Diaw is 10K, does he?
I don't know.
I think he has a lot of boards, man.
I know, but he's got a lot of espresso.
He has a lot of espresso.
I mean, listen, which by the way, this is so off topic. I did a video the other day where I said espresso, but I guess the way I talk, I said espresso.
Oh yeah.
And dude, I got destroyed. It's like, oh my gosh, why do you guys care so much?
Like, guys, I know how to say it. All right.
Do we think Boris?
No, Justin, I don't think Boris has 10,000 rebounds. You're not gonna be able to sell me on this one. He's a
But like,
small forward or
okay,
power. He's a power forward a little bit, but like he's kind of a hybrid.
I know. I guess you're right. I know Zach Randolph has 10K because we've been down that road. But was Zach born outside of the US? He might actually work
He
for
worked for
20
the
points
20
per
though. I
game.
was gonna say I was looking over at the 20.
Ooh.
I think that's a good one. If he's got
That has he had 20?
yeah, definitely with Memphis, with
Ooh, that could be a good one. Zach Randolph could be
he's definitely
a
at 20. I mean, he might have even had with Portland, honestly. But he definitely had it with Memphis. I
you
like
want
Zach Randolph in that corner spot for sure.
Zach Randolph. Point
Nice.
two.
Okay, man. No love for Zebo. That's crazy. Um,
Mm.
uh,
Well, while we're here, both Gasols I think would work for born
wow.
outside the US.
I don't. Oh man, how many rebounds does Mark have?
I don't know. But if Zach has it, right?
Yeah, but nah, Zach was on the boards, man. Zach was
Okay.
Mark is a defensive guy, but like I don't associate with Mark crashing the boards like that. Now, granted, he's over 7 foot, so I think he may have just got it by accident.
Yeah.
Powell, I think definitely. If you want to go Powell, born 50 outside and with 10K, I think
Let's
Powell
go,
definitely
pal.
works. And
Let's go, pal.
I think he'll be less than Robinson or not Robinson, Duncan and Olajuwon, 3%. Nice.
3%.
Okay, cool.
I mean, Shaq works for Suns 10,000.
Shaq does work. Wow, I was the thing. My initial thought there was Barkley. Charles Barkley
Oh
played
yeah.
his MVP ball in
I don't know
Phoenix.
why I
Like,
went to Shaq, but yeah,
no, I think Shaq may be a better answer there, honestly, because Shaq was. I mean, Phoenix was not fully out of his prime, but he was not Shaq in Phoenix.
You want to go Shaq?
Yeah, I'm cool with going Shaq. I was gonna go Barkley, so like it's
Okay.
one or the other there.
22%.
Yeah, I think
we'll take
Barkley's
it.
the other one, man. I feel good about
Do
that.
we
I also
go?
crack up when Shaq is all the way on the left in this for some reason.
Should we go Kemba
Yeah, I think we should go
for
Kemba.
our last one for the listeners?
I think he may have got it for like. I mean, he had 2 years before he was like kind of unhealthy there.
I literally thought he was only on the team for 1 year.
I'll have to look at that longer.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
we did,
let's
baby.
go.
What was
Kemba,
the percentage on that?
0.5. Let's go, Justin. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So let's clear some of these up. Just
47.
so because while I was looking, Marc Gasol does not have 10,000 rebounds. Marc Gasol has 6,600 rebounds career.
Wow.
Powell had 11,000. So Powell was clear. We had no worry about that there.
Okay.
Kemba Walker, Boris Diaw, by the way, had like 4,600 or something. Kemba did average 20 points a game in Boston. He did it one season. In 2019-2020, he averaged 20.4 points a game. The next year in Boston, he was only there for 2 years. The next year in Boston, he averaged 19.3.
Okay. Dang.
He just dealt with a lot of injuries. Like he was in the 20s for 4 straight years in Charlotte. And then just, like we said, he kind of just faded out. Like he faded out of the league kind of quick.
By the way, I found the player I was thinking of, and I was way off. I was thinking of Derek Favors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not more at all. But Derek Favors was Jazz for a long time. Do you want to scroll down for me so we can see the most common answers real quick?
Yep.
All right. So most common answers for everybody. Oh, yeah. Hornacek's a good one. So for Jazz and Suns, Jeff Hornacek. For born outside U.S. 50 states and D.C. for the Jazz, Rudy Gobert. 20 a game per season, Karl Malone. For the Celtics and Suns, Shaq. Shaq actually there. Born outside the 50 states in DC, Kristaps Porzingis, probably not a surprise. 20 a game for the Celtics, Larry Bird. 10K rebounds and 20 a game per season, Wilt Chamberlain. 10K rebounds and born outside the U.S., Hakeem Olajuwon, and 10K rebounds in Phoenix, Charles Barkley. So not too bad. I think we got none of the top guys this time around, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, we had Shaq just in a different spot.
Yeah, so let's recap a little bit. Our grid,
the hardest,
Jazz and Suns the hardest.
Jazz and Suns the hardest, which has 49 options. I'll pull that up, see what we're working with there.
But our grid to recap: Grayson Allen for Jazz and Suns, Mehmet Okur for Jazz born outside the U.S., Gordon Hayward, Jazz 20 a game per season, Leandro Barbosa for Celtics and Suns, Dennis Schroeder for Celtics and born outside the U.S. Kemba Walker, Celtics 20 a game per season. Suns 10K rebounds. Shaq 10K rebounds and born outside the U.S. Pau Gasol and 10K rebounds and 20 points a game per season. Zach Randolph.
So there's 3 players, by the way, for
I
Suns.
knew we were going to smoke that, FYI.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of us for smoking it as much as I thought we would.
There are 3 player, maybe even 4. There was a weird 2018, 2022, and 21 connection going on here for Suns Jazz, where you had guys that played like 7 games for each, and that's it. Like, I mean, Chris Humphries actually works, but he played a decent bit with the Jazz. But only 4 games with the Suns in 2016. Elijah Millsap.
Yeah, I remember him bouncing around. He was a Sixer for a little bit.
He played 2 games with the Suns and 67 with the Jazz. Greg Monroe, 2018, played 20 games with the Suns. In 2022, played 3 games with the Jazz. That would probably be the lowest percentage there, unless you wanted to go. Jake Crowder works, but he's got a lot for each. Ricky Rubio, we did talk about. Grayson Allen, we talked about. I'm trying to see if there's any other, like Boris Diaw.
Yeah, Diaw would have worked there. Yeah, now I think about it. Yeah, your boy, the Boris.
Raja Bell would have worked too. I guess that's kind of
Raja Bell. Love Raja Bell. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys, as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Player FM, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
I was like, why is Kevin ending this so fast? I forgot I have to do work.
I didn't want to put
7 minutes.
I don't want to put Dame time watch up, but I'm like, I'm your internal clock here a little bit.
Like,
but
bro, we gotta go.
I'm trying to keep you employed.
Yeah, for real. Obviously, I need to stay employed, and if you want to follow us on YouTube, you can subscribe there, where we put the podcasts up, the video version of the podcast, obviously for the grid. That's a very visual thing. You can watch it there. Just search Driving Dish NBA podcast and subscribe so you know when new episodes are coming out.